Welcome, everybody. I am going to share my screen in a second, but I just first want to say thank you for joining us today. It is quite a time we're living through, and we're going to talk about it, what it means and what it feels like, and how we can navigate through it. But I know how precious your time is right now as a mom of a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old with a partner who works full-time. I totally get it. And so I'm just really grateful that you guys chose this webinar and that you're here. And I'm going to do absolutely everything I can to make this exciting and meaningful and helpful for you. And I hope that you all also use the chat, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but use the space to connect with each other as well. Because I think that one of the things we really need to remember in this moment is that we are not alone. We are not alone. We're in this together. We'll get through this together. And sharing with each other, I think, is one of the best ways that we can remind ourselves of that and take strength from that. So I even put on shoes for you guys today. I think this is one of the first times I've worn like real shoes that aren't tennis shoes to go for my walk around the block in 7 weeks. So I'm excited to be here. Really excited to start. So I'm going to share my screen and my presentation. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, share this, and then bear with me for 1 second while we start here. Okay, great. So again, welcome everyone. I'm so excited to see you all virtually, know that you're there. It feels good to be together. Okay, here we go. So my name is Jessica James. I have 15 years experience in the nonprofit sector. I've held basically every job in a development department that you can possibly have. So I've done it all. And now run a consulting company that does sort of 2 different things. I work with corporations on their CSR strategies. So I support them in either launching CSR strategies, launching corporate foundations from scratch, and making sure that whatever their efforts are bottom line driven, strategic, aligned with their mission and their values and their work. And that are actually making an impact in the community and not just box checking. And then the other side of my firm is working with nonprofits like you guys. So my specialty is in corporate engagement, and that's where I do most of my facilitation and workshop leading. But I also do the whole range of development director services. So interim director of development work, individual giving programs, communications. I kind of do it all, and it's really exciting to be on both ends of the spectrum. It's nice to have the sort of insight from what companies are looking for, what they're hungry for, what their employees want, and to be able to share with them what nonprofits are up to and the skills and the amazing resources that you bring to the partnership, and to be able to share with both sides is really the best thing about my role in this consulting firm. So today, what are we going to do today? We've had this plan for months, and it was a workshop that I do often, nurturing corporate partnerships from prospect to partner. And obviously things have changed a lot in the last 7 or so weeks. And so I recreated this deck and this presentation to really focus on this moment, because I know that there's a lot of fear and uncertainty and a lot of concern. And I think especially with what's happening in our economy, there might be more concern right now about your corporate partners than there are about other types of donors. So we're going to focus on what's happening right now and what we can do in our organizations to not just survive, but accelerate our work and use this as an opportunity to grow as a team, as an organization, and deepen our work with our constituents. So the first thing we're going to do is take stock of how we're kind of doing in this moment and what's actually happening. Because I think it's critical for us to be effective leaders. We first have to know the reality that we're working within. So we're going to take a minute to do that. And again, we're sort of in this unprecedented time right now, and nothing's really normal. And so this might not be your sort of normal webinar that you've participated in the past. Because again, this moment's not normal, and we need to do things, we need to shake things up a little bit right now, I feel like. We're also going to talk about tactics for navigating these challenges that we're facing right now, and some overarching principles to keep in mind really at any time in fundraising, especially in crisis times, and in this moment dealing with COVID and the associated economic fallout in particular. We're going to just talk about some high-level principles and then talk about some really specific strategies for engaging corporate donors, some that I have seen clients do successfully that they're launching now, and just some other ideas that I've come up with that I want to share with you guys. So as Kimberly said, it says Melissa, but it's actually Kimberly there. So as Kimberly said when she was beginning, please use the Q&A function throughout this time to ask questions, and we're going to get to Q&A after. So I'm not going to be managing the Q&A because I'll get super distracted. But if you do have a question, like how does this apply to my nonprofit that serves XYZ constituent, put it in the chat. If you can't hear me, or if there's any sort of clarifying, like you broke up, we couldn't catch that, just put that in the chat and Kimberly will interrupt me and I can review what I just said. But any other questions, just feel free to like drop them in the chat as we go and we'll get to them at the end for the Q&A. Okay, so I want to take a moment again to kind of level set and talk about where we are right now. And like I said, I have a meditation practice, and I don't know if we have any meditators on the phone, or on the Zoom, but the main principle in meditation is we cannot work with what we don't see. And so I feel like now this moment really calls us to be brutally honest with what's actually happening right now. And if you haven't taken a minute to do this, and a minute, an hour, a therapy session, all 7 weeks, if you haven't been doing this regularly, I do encourage you to use this hour or use some time soon to let yourself really kind of acknowledge and sit with what we're facing right now, which is truly an unprecedented moment in human history, right? Yes, there have been pandemics before. There will be pandemics again, but never in this way where we know what's happening in every country and every continent. We're aware of the pain, the global pain, the economic fallout, the speed with which this is all happening and coming to us. So whatever feelings are coming up for you that you're dealing with in your life, in your work, in your organizations, in your teams, those things are understandable. Whatever it is understandable in this context. So we're dealing with this global pandemic and we're in the middle of it and we don't know yet when it will end, right? Some states are reopening, some states aren't. We don't know. We don't know how this is gonna shake out and what when normal life will resume. We're dealing with an associated economic fallout. And again, we're seeing it kind of play out in real time, but we don't know where the bottom is yet. We just don't know. And that causes fear for us personally in our lives, with our families, about our jobs, about our financial health and well-being. It causes fear for us in terms of our organizations and what hard decisions we're going to have to make about our organizations and our staffing and our programs. And it causes fear, of course, for our clients and the people and individuals and communities that we serve. So this results in trauma. We are all in trauma right now. Whether you know someone that has been directly affected by COVID, whether you or someone in your family has, or whether you have been directly affected by the financial situation in this country right now, it doesn't matter. We're all dealing with trauma. And that's showing up in our sleep and the dreams we're having and the way we're reacting to certain things at home with our children, with our partners, with our coworkers, with our donors, with our board members. It's happening. And again, if we can't name that, if we can't acknowledge that we're in trauma right now, it's going to be impossible for us to be the kind of leaders and show up the way that we need to show up in this moment for our organizations and for the constituents that we serve. And many of you I know serve individuals who deal with trauma and other aspects of their life previous to this. So we're supporting people in their trauma, and we're also experiencing trauma, and they're experiencing trauma on a new level, and it's a lot. So the normal ways of connecting aren't available to us, right? Normally, in times of crisis or natural disasters, we can go back to work, we see our colleagues, we have lunch together, we sort of share anecdotes over the water cooler, we go to networking events and run into donors, or we schedule lunches and meetings and have our fundraisers and our normal sort of activities. Those things aren't happening. We have to schedule time on a Zoom call to talk, to connect, and it's hard. We can't make eye contact with each other. Being together feels very differently. And so it's harder for us to deal with that trauma and everything else that's happening to us. Many of us, including me, are balancing working full-time with caring for our children and trying to educate them. And I think there's been some articles recently about how much longer can this really be sustained. So in the midst of the trauma, in the midst of your brain trying to process all of that, you're also trying to carry out what is essentially an impossible request to do everything you were doing before, plus all the parenting, plus all the schooling, plus all the childcare. And so it makes our ability to cope with everything that's going on in our workplaces and with our colleagues even more challenging. Everything feels upended right now. Again, the future is uncertain. We don't know when life is going to go back to normal. We don't know when we're going to be able to have that fundraiser or reschedule that gala, or get back to normal to see our colleagues, to see our students, the people that we serve. And I know, because I'm a fundraiser too, I know that those of you who are fundraisers, you're planners, you want to know, you already have the date set for next year's gala, right? We need to know months and months in advance in order to meet our goals, in order to be responsible. And to not have the ability to plan is crushing for me. And I'm sure that it is for you too in this work. It is extremely difficult to accept that we just don't know when things are going to get back to normal. So I want to say that if you have something else and a reality that I haven't named here, or if there's just something that you would like to share with the group, put it in the chat. It feels counterintuitive maybe if this is not something you're used to name our fears. But again, we're going to talk about it in just a second. We cannot work with what we don't see. And we cannot show up for our organizations, for our teams, for our boards, for the people that we serve, for the planet, for the work that we do, if we aren't honest with ourselves about how we're feeling and what we're actually dealing with. So whether you say it out loud to yourself right now, in your office, in your closet, in your bathroom, wherever you're huddled to try to do your work, whether you write it down on a piece of paper or make time to do it later today, or you put it in the chat, you're one of the brave people who decides to offer it up to the group. I think that the more we can say it and share it with each other, we know that we're not alone, and that anything we're fearing or feeling is universal right now in this crazy time. So I'm just going to offer this tool, and it's rooted in meditation. And I know there's some of you that are saying, like, I want to get on with it. Like, I'm ready for those tips. I want to know how to raise the money from the companies. And I offer this to you if that's what you're feeling, is a little impatience or, a sense of I'm ready for the solutions. That's just something to notice and sit with for just a moment. So this tool is called RAIN, and it was pioneered by this woman, Tara Brach, who's an incredible leader, and she wrote a book called Radical Acceptance, and she has a really fantastic podcast if you're interested in any of these sort of topics. But the overarching idea is to sit with what is, rather than trying to shut it off and say, nope, that's too scary, I'm not going to even acknowledge that. So RAIN is an acronym that stands for recognize what is happening. So when we feel a fear of, I'm scared we're going to lose funding from our largest corporate donor because they just got totally slammed by this, right? Okay, that's the truth of it, is I'm afraid right now that we're going to lose a significant portion of our funding and we might have to close a program. Instead of immediately trying to get to the solution there and pushing it aside, I'm going to allow the experience of that pain to just be there. Just as it is. It hurts. I'm scared. I don't want things to be like this. I want to go to the way they were before. I could handle that, but I can't handle this. It's a feeling of disappointment, of fear, of fear of disappointing other people. Especially if we ourselves are responsible for the corporate budget, somehow it feels like our own worth is tied up in this. So instead, again, of trying to sweep it away, we're going to investigate that feeling and be interested in it instead of wanting it to go away. We're going to ask questions about it, like, where does it feel in our bodies? Where does it sit? What does it make me want to do? Does it make me want to cry? Does it make me want to sleep all day? Does it make me want to get mad at somebody? And we're just going to nurture that feeling with some self-compassion. Like this, again, I am living through an unprecedented crisis in human history. Of course you're scared. Of course. You know, you can pat yourself on the head. You can hold yourself. You can say, it is understandable and acceptable for you to be feeling these things. And again, I offer this because I want this for each of you individually, to have that self-compassion and care for yourselves in this moment. I think it makes the extraordinary circumstances we're trying to cope with a little bit easier in some ways, to have that, just that brief pause before we begin to react in anger or sadness or fear. It certainly helps me, you know, in dealing with my partner and dealing with my children, and dealing with my own self-doubt and feelings. But in the context of this conversation, we really can't be the kind of leaders and the kind of partners with our donors if we aren't first taking care of ourselves and our sanity. So I encourage you to check her out and remember this as a tool. And there's a lot of other wonderful tools that she has to offer. So let's talk about what it means to fundraise in a crisis in general before we start talking about corporations specifically. So, you know, we might think that we're up against the biggest challenge in terms of fundraising because the economy is on a steep downturn. But actually, our work has never been more needed than it is in this moment. And that's because, if you don't already know this, your job as a fundraiser is to be the joy giver. You are the catalyst, you are the connector between an opportunity to change somebody's life and somebody who wants their life to be changed. As Maya Angelou says, among its other benefits, giving liberates the soul of the giver. And so we as fundraisers, if you don't already know, I'm telling you today, our job is to liberate people's souls. And you've seen it happen. I mean, I've seen it happen when a board member really begins to understand not only their responsibility, but their privilege in getting to serve this organization. Or when an individual donor starts out, sort of dips their toe in through volunteer efforts, feels their heart expanding and continues to get more and more and more involved until they are a board member or they are, you know, helping to lead the organization. When a company comes in to do a day of service and all of the employees at the end of the day are in tears and hugging each other and hugging you and your clients because they feel like their heart had just been cracked open. So it is a gift and a privilege for us to be able to serve as the catalyst for that joy. And boy, man, people need joy. People need joy right now. So as far as I'm concerned, we as the connectors between the two causes, between the cause and the donor, we are essential to this moment because we have something that people need, the joy of generosity, which is life-changing. So this means that we can work from an abundance mentality. And again, if this is not something that's familiar to you in your work, now might be a good time to sort of explore this a little bit with your teams, your boards. It essentially means there's enough to go around. There was 3 months ago, and there still is today. There is enough money to go around. And if you don't believe it, or if you're a board member or your boss or whoever doesn't believe it, just tell them, I was on a webinar and this woman told me. And then you can be absolved of the necessity of proving it. I promise you there is enough to go around. And so the job then becomes not panicking over how are we going to get what little is out there, but what door is the right one for us to open and what path takes us to what we need and what is sort of ours, right? So again, I hope many of you are already operating in that in your normal pre-COVID lives and pre-COVID teams. But if you're not, try it out now, because the abundance mentality, when we get into a scarcity place like we are now, it's actually sometimes easier to implement because we really can see it so clearly. So it means that we can hold kind of two different things at once. We can be fearful of the uncertainty of this moment and committed to our mission still, right? And know that our work is more important now than ever before, and that it must continue, even despite the tragedy, even despite the pain. We can be aware of financial hardships. We can be aware that some of our board members or donors are suffering right now financially, and they are living in fear and scarcity and uncertainty. And we can still also believe that our organization deserves to be funded. We can recognize how serious this moment is and how scary it is, and also use this time to accelerate our work, to do something more, to do something different. And I'm not trying to add more work to your plate, because believe me, I understand, again, as the mom and the person in trauma and all of that, I understand how hard it is to even think outside of the box right now. But it also can be freeing to take this time and to say, I'm not just gonna work harder, but I'm gonna kind of shake things up a little bit in a way that makes me feel excited. Because again, we need that. And we as fundraisers, in our job of trying to come up with ideas and opportunities and sponsorship packages that excite people, that is another gift that we can offer this moment. So let's talk about the other things that are happening in this moment, which is that not all companies are being hurt. Okay, there are some companies actually right now that are thriving in this moment. Tech companies, streaming companies, a lot of food companies, grocery stores, chains. There are plenty of companies that aren't going to be decimated by this. Okay, so that's first and foremost, is that yes, this is hurting a lot of companies and a lot of individuals. And also it's not hurting everyone. And it's not hurting everyone in the same way. The other thing to keep in mind is that companies' charitable budgets, their CSR budgets, were set last year. Companies, most of them work on a January to December fiscal year, and they set their budgets in October of the previous year. So that is money that, especially if they're publicly traded, they can't move that around, right? If it's pledged there and it's able to be spent still, then it has to be spent there. And then CSR teams still have their goals to meet for ESG reports, for shareholder reports, especially if they're publicly traded. This is just not an optional thing. But going to sort of the employees being more hungry than ever before, I think that the last place a company right now is going to cut is their CSR budget. And I know that because I work with companies who are looking really critically at budgets and having to make really hard decisions. And they are recognizing that in this moment, like I said before, wow, we can't cut the thing that everybody loves. We can't cut the thing that makes us all feel joyful and hopeful. That's not going away, right? And their budgets aren't that big anyway, guys. I mean, we're talking about, some of the bigger places have multiple millions of dollars, but for the most part, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they're not going to get a huge win budget-wise by cutting all of their charitable spending this year. Another interesting thing that I've been hearing from companies is that their travel budgets, many, if a national or a global company have tremendous, huge travel budgets, those are not being spent right now. And so that is an interesting angle. If you have a close corporate sponsor that you're already working with, that you're looking to pitch, or it's time to make the next ask to, or you want to, you're able to work with them very closely in this moment, and you have a new need based on COVID or whatever it is, offering that to them is a really creative solution. Because again, that money is not being spent, and that's, if they're not able to spend it, then they can use it in other places. So it could be a creative option.
Jessica?
Yes.
Could you explain what their ESG reports are?
Sure. So it's an ESG report is something that a lot of publicly traded companies or just large companies have to create. It stands for environmental, social, and governance. So it's essentially how it's like a score. It's an index that tells you how well a company is performing on those different measures. So like carbon outputs, diversity, board diversity, CSR spending, charitable spending, CSR is corporate social responsibility. So any of their work that goes into the community or volunteerism is included in that. And so most companies, that are publicly traded or that are, Fortune 5,000 companies have some sort of ESG report that they have to publish, that they have to make public. So it's becoming less, and this is something that if, 3 months ago in our normal workshop, we would have been talking a lot about this current moment in CSR and how exciting it is. And it still is true. But this is something that's only going to continue more and more, is to this sort of understanding that our CSR, what we do for the community, is not a nice to have, it's a have to have. It's a critical part of any company's infrastructure, their ability to get funding, their ability to get investors. So again, that is not going away. Just because there's a financial crisis, I believe, and I have heard and seen already in the last couple of months, that that's not on the chopping block right now. Internally, they might be spending less on internal consultants, but they're not spending less on their nonprofit partners right now, or they're not planning to for the next year. Now, I'm going to name another reality, which is true, which is that in 2 years, this might be different because they're going to set their budgets this October for next year. And we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen in this October. That is an unknown. So we might be feeling this more in a couple of years than we're feeling it this year. But right now, the truth is that overall, this aspect of a company's budget has not been harmed drastically. So, again, employees are more hungry for hope and connection than ever before. You have offered that to your corporate partners. And if you've never done any corporate, fundraising in the past, then know that that is something you can offer them, is their employees feeling connected, hopeful, joyful, get out of the office, have an opportunity to actually really like what they do. And feel like part of a team and not just somebody cranking out widgets, which a lot of them I think do feel like. And the nonprofit sector represents all of the things about work and the work-life balance that folks in the corporate sector long for. And there's some misunderstanding about that, of course, but they look at us and they think, wow, it must be so wonderful to just work all day and work for the greater good or for social justice. And so even though they're not able to get out of their offices and wear their matching t-shirts and do their whole thing like they normally do, that doesn't remove the need, and even more so now than ever before, the need to feel connected, the need to have some feeling that they're not alone, that they're still able to help. So don't think that volunteerism is over, and we're about to talk about that, but it is not. And again, when you're talking to a corporate sponsor, either one of your existing partners that you're looking to continue the relationship with or a new prospect, in this moment, that is a huge component of this still. And then the last thing I want to say is that, again, 3 months ago, selling products to people was becoming, they still have to do it, of course, but these companies are having to come up with more creative ways to hawk their products to us because we're becoming a little bit fed up with just being sold crap. And so now, especially in the middle of this crisis, companies are having to be extremely careful about what they promote and how they sell it and their advertising language and, the pictures that they use and all of that. In general, before this, content like social media content that has a purpose. So a product, we went to this school and donated backpacks, anything that has a purpose driven message attached to it, even if it's still selling us the backpack, that gets 4 times more engagement than a normal post that just is buy my backpack. So if you can imagine, I don't know what the stat is now, but you can imagine that was a pre-quarantine, pre-lockdown, pre-coronavirus life. You can only imagine now how much big companies and their marketing teams are scrambling to find content and messages that resonate with people based on where we are right now, which is really anti-consumerism. We're really not about that at this moment in time. So again, when you're pitching a company and when you're thinking about ways to pitch them, incorporating marketing, and this is true always before Corona and especially true now, talking about co-branded content and the ability to do something together that they can then promote about how their company's values and mission, and how they feel like now's the time to turn towards their nonprofit partners and support them and work with them, that's going to be a big sell. Okay, so how do we do this? We're going to start talking about with your current corporate sponsors. And if you don't have any current corporate sponsors, you know, we're going to talk about some new ideas for engaging them in just a moment. But this is really most important. And this is true also for your foundation program officers, obviously your board members, your main volunteers, your individual donors, your major donors. Check in with them, you know, check in with them. A simple, how are you? And here's some updates from us. And we're going to talk about what those can be in a second. And then how can we support you? So the title of this presentation is about partnerships. It's not about a donor relationship where you get the money, get the stuff, and then you don't hear from them anymore, and it's a transactional thing. That's not what works anymore, and that's not what is sustainable and what is transformational. So saying genuinely, like, how are your employees doing, and what could we be doing together that could give them some joy, inspire them a little bit? You know, what could we work on that would meet both of our needs right now? In terms of updates, if you've had to cancel your program, or you can't get updates from your program because of what's happening right now, send a snapshot of your staff Zoom call, or send pictures from happier times, you know, send a reminder of something that happened before. Send them something that that just shows them that, you know, the wheels are still going and that you are still here. You just want to remind them that the work continues. You know, for your biggest sponsors, a framed picture of, you know, if they were an honoree, a picture from the gala when they were honored, or them volunteering with their teams, you know, a goodie bag with your hats and your t-shirts, links to uplifting stories, just something to show them that you're trying to support them. And then recorded greetings from constituents. You know, again, in lieu of the in-person thing, there are creative ways that you can record messages, send updates with if you're working with young people, you know, have them create some sort of project or presentation that you then email to them. So this part, it's pretty basic, but it's really, really important. And it's amazing how much it matters, because once this ends, which it will, a new world will come and a new day will dawn. And I'm going to want to stick with my friends who were checking in on me and who I was checking in with regularly. I'm going to want to stick with the vendors in my organization that were, you know, present for me during this time. So it's about really truly wanting to know how they are and supporting them, but it's also about ensuring that once this time is over, that the relationship maintains that strength, and that you can pick up where you left off, and they feel like, you know what, they stuck with us through that. And they were busy and taxed and having to take care of their kids, and they still found time to check in with us. You know, one other thing I just want to say here when you're checking in with people is that you have to find a way to make your work more important now than ever before. Like that, and I can't do that for you, right, on this webinar. But whether you're a dance company and people need to move more than ever before, or you're, you know, doing climate change policy research, and now's the time to really, you know, get the message across that our planet can be saved. Whatever it is that you're doing, now is the time to figure out what that message is, make it really crystallized, and share it in these updates, and share it in your social media posts, and make sure that people are seeing that though maybe the program can't continue as it normally has, the work itself is more important than ever before. You have to figure that out. How do we make that true? How do we say that in a way that's true? All right, so now we're getting into some creative ideas for volunteerism. I've sort of divided this up into a couple of categories that might be, you know, frequently come up on these webinars. And so these are ideas both for your existing corporate sponsors, and it could also be an opportunity to invite new companies and corporate sponsors into the mix, to develop the pipeline of prospects. So just before I talk about some of these individually, and this is again what we talk about in other webinars pre-COVID, you package these things. You package them, you can price them, and you can pitch them. So they are volunteer opportunities, but they don't have to be just cultivation opportunities open to all. You can say, have it be the Zoom Food for Thought Lunch and Learn series, right? Or the Google Hangout on climate change policy, or whatever it is. You can brand these opportunities and package them in a way that's really attractive to companies, where you're also listing very clearly the benefits to that company, which should always include co-branded marketing content for your social media channels, for their social media channels, opportunities for visibility for their leadership, opportunities for their employees to get engaged. So you list those benefits very clearly in whatever package you provide to your corporate sponsors. Also, I will say that any of these can be not packaged and pitched for money. They can also be truly cultivation events. And in my normal workshop, when we are able to do in-person volunteering, I suggest that every nonprofit has both signature volunteer events, where you have them reoccurring and they're open to all, and it's a way to get new people in and cultivate them, keep them close. And you have packaged days of doing, where you work with a company to host their employees for one of their team building days. So there's both. I would recommend for the days of doing that you price those, that you have a price in mind that you share with them, or you make it clear that you're expecting a gift of a certain size. With the signature volunteer events, I recommend those being open to all. Now things are a little bit different, right? Because we don't have those literal open doors where people can show up and during their lunch break and come and bring their friends and bring their team. So I think you can do either with these. You can have something that's sort of packaged and pitched, or you can have these be open to all. But let's say you have a corporate sponsor and you were looking to increase their gift this year. And so the main goal right now is to keep them close and to make them feel like they still have a partner in you and that they can still get their needs met through this partnership. And let's say you run a school or a after school program for teenagers. So here's a couple of ideas, to have your students work on a project to present to the employees, right? To ask the CEO to be a principal for a day and do like a morning Zoom session and weather update and, something happy in the morning, and then some sort of lunchtime, chat with some of his employees or her employees, and then an evening kind of wrap up or end of the day story time. So some way to keep their folks really engaged that feels exciting for them. Because again, remember, going back, we're the joy givers, we're the soul liberators. We're the ones that say, like, there's still hope out there, and we represent that to them. So don't deny them the opportunity to get involved with you when we're all so hungry for positive opportunities that make us feel good, right? So you can read these, and I believe we'll be sending this out in a minute, and I want to make sure we have time for questions. So, I have here job seekers and the arts, and then policy. Let's say you don't work with individuals. How do you keep things fresh? Doing strategy briefings. I have a client, we just did this recently and invited our donors and prospects to a strategy briefing on how we're continuing to organize in the midst of a pandemic. Offering to co-write an op-ed with a CEO or one of your corporate sponsors is another great way to sort of stroke them, get them, make them feel like you really value their opinion. And also, again, it's that co-branded content. You're showing up together with them. I also want to give a shout out to my friends that I think are on from an animal shelter in St. Petersburg, Florida, Friends of Strays. I did not include anything here about animals, but for Friends of Strays and for any other organizations that work with animals, is there anything we need more right now than cat videos, content that makes us happy, that sort of takes us away from this moment? So again, a company could sponsor something like that, right? It could be the Salesforce, like cat video of the day. I mean, I'm not branding this, right? But you name it something, you package it, so it's something that they can really see. Oh, this is cool. Like, I'd love to participate in this or have this go out with our logo on it once a week. The other thing I'll say about these ideas is companies never have time to whiteboard ideas with you, okay? So if you come to them and say, we're interested in doing something with like a principal for a day, I don't know, like, what do you think about that? Is that something you might be interested in? Especially now, given how we're all doing, they're gonna be like, I don't know, I just don't, I don't have the time to think about it, right? Package it. Principal for a day, $5,000. From 9 to 10, you do this. From 12 to 1, you do this. And from 3 to 4, you read a book, and or whatever it is, right? Package it, call it something, put a price tag on it, offer it to them. Again, you don't have to put a price tag on it. It can be a straight cultivation opportunity, but you decide that in advance. Talk with your team. Should this be a way to just get folks in and get people excited and also keep our existing folks happy until the next time we're going to have a gala or a fundraiser or a telethon? Or is this a way to get more money in the door right now? There's two different options there. I also just want to say one other thing here. Well, all of these are great content for them, right? We were just talking about that marketing need, that they really don't want to be seen as insensitive or trying to sell people crap right now. So they want that really kind of meaningful content. This all is the kind of content they're hungry for. So having a picture of their CEO doing a principal for a day with all the students on the Zoom, or talking about it, or sharing the curriculum that they created, that's all just like excellent content for them right now. And the other thing that I'm finding with my clients when we're pitching donors in this time is that all of this allows our work to be more accessible, right? And so maybe the company wants to underwrite, one of the ideas I'm working with a client is a virtual leadership seminar for a professional young youth leadership organization. And so previously there were barriers to entry, right? There was the fee, there was the travel, there was all sorts of other things. Now all barriers have been removed, and that is really exciting. And another way to say this time is hard, and it's tragic, and it's scary, and we are using this to accelerate our work and make it more accessible and make it virtual, and things that we had been wanting to do for a long time but never would have ripped the Band-Aid off like this, right? Okay, so these are just some ways, some are real life opportunities that are already out there, and some, well, I think all of these are real life opportunities, but these are things that, again, you can package. Like, let's say you want to keep the volunteer events all free and cultivation opportunities for new folks and just keeping your people happy. These are all opportunities for packaged selling sponsorship things, like the Atlanta Orchestra is doing singing telegrams right now to essential workers and people who are particularly isolated or vulnerable. So again, a company could sponsor that, and great branding for them, great content for them, great ways for their employees to get involved and to feel proud. And it's of the moment, right? It feels very relevant. Panel series featuring leaders from the corporate side who maybe have an expertise on whatever your subject matter is, or could do some sort of co-branded panel with your students or your job seekers or your executive director. A nonprofit I talked to that's a dance company is going to be packaging a box set of their greatest performances and classes and offering that. So again, it's like, this is something we talked about for a long time. And it's something that sort of is evergreen. It lives on in perpetuity, but we never would have gotten it together to do this fast enough, had this not befallen us. I spoke about the No Barrier Virtual Youth Seminar. And then the galas, I just want to talk about this for a minute, and then we'll open it up to questions. Some nonprofits have been doing virtual galas for a while, because guess what? Zero overhead, right? You're not paying for all of the things that make galas and breakfasts and lunches so expensive for us. I think most nonprofits I'm talking to, I live in Maplewood, New Jersey, and so we're very close to the epicenter of what's going on right now. No in-person galas are happening this year for my clients, for the people I work with. And I'm sorry if that is a hard thing to hear. But I think it's the reality for most of us here, is that trying to book a venue right now for the fall feels too risky. So everybody's moving it to some sort of online virtual thing. And while it feels a little weird and a little sad, I think that actually we can make it really cool. So there's a lot of different ways that you can structure these things, and maybe, you know, we can talk about it in the chat, or if people want to email me afterwards. But you know, you can deliver a little package to people in advance, like maybe it has the ingredients for a specialty cocktail, or like a bow tie or a fancy headpiece, or, you know, some ingredients for a meal, or a prepared meal, right? You can send things to people's homes. If it's a local charity, you can deliver them. You can make it interactive still, and you can do elements that are both pre-recorded and live. One thing I want to say about galas is you don't have to have it all live. It's a little bit like Joe Biden's recent fireside chats, which have been great in content, but he doesn't need them to be live, because there's always a thing that happens with a live thing. Pre-record them and then publish them at a certain time. It's okay. It doesn't have to be. There's some parts that can be when you have a Q&A or some sort of interactive piece, but don't feel like your gala has to be some, you know, live experience. Look what Saturday Night Live is doing now, right? They're adapting. So don't write off the idea of a virtual gala or a telethon where different people take over at different times. I have a client who, one of our corporate partners, is doing that. They're doing a Zoom telethon where they're going to be on Zoom calling and texting folks to ask them to donate. So it's just kind of a fun way to get a bunch of different moving pieces involved. Okay, so I'm going to recap and then we'll see what kind of questions we have. So I just want to recap that your work is more important now than ever before. And I mean, your organization is. If it was doing meaningful work 3 months ago, and if it mattered in the world 3 months ago, it still does. And you, fundraiser, development director, corporate giving officer, executive director, board member, whoever you are, please know that you hold the link to people's generosity to the best of them, right? When we give, when we donate, when we stretch ourselves, when we give more, a little bit more than we think we can give, that makes us feel strong. That makes us feel hopeful. It makes us feel generous. It makes us feel like there's something to do and live for and move on for and look forward to. Don't deny people that. Don't tell yourself they're not going to give because they just got laid off or because of this moment in time. Don't make that decision for them. So fundraising can and should forge ahead, and the key is to create interesting opportunities for companies to connect and to have the content piece be there. So content for them to share and still meaningful ways for their employees to get involved. So I'm really excited to hear your questions. I want to say one more time, thank you, because again, I know every hour is so precious right now, always, but right now especially, and it's been a joy to be with you. So I'm going to turn it over to Kimberly and see what kind of questions we got.
All right, thank you, Jessica. So we're going to open it up to questions from you all. So please submit any questions through the Q&A tab or the chat button at the bottom of your screen. And we have one to start us off from Brittany. She says, how do we respond to corporations that say they are going to pull their annual funding to focus their efforts on direct impact to COVID-19 this year? Go back to them once the region reopens, say thank you, and approach them for 2021?
Yes, great question. So, you know, here's the thing. I don't know what your organization does, Brittany, but I would say you can either figure out a way to say we do have a direct impact on COVID-19. Here's how. We're keeping our students engaged. We're keeping people fit and healthy. We're, botanical garden. So that might be one of the first places to reopen, I would think, right? Like a botanical garden, especially right now when we're all so desperate for an activity. What could your botanical garden do to host people in a sensitive, socially distant way that a company could sponsor? So give them something to say yes to, or to look at, you know, rather than saying, can you just continue to fund us because our work is important? I think that saying we're going to host, you know, a spring fling, a socially distant spring fling once, you know, I don't know if you're in a place that's going to reopen anytime soon or not, but a summer fling where we're going to have, you know, okay, Buffalo, New York. So hopefully relatively soon. I don't know about Buffalo situation, but I guess my point is to come up with something creative and package it and show them that more than ever, people are going to need safe and beautiful spaces outside to gather and congregate. And maybe there's a partnership that you can begin or launch with a program serving, kids of essential workers who are still in a daycare, or still have to go to school, right? Because there's some daycares and schools that cannot close, or they're serving those populations. Or maybe it's something special for the essential workers. And a company would love to sponsor that, right? So something that's a beautiful outside, celebrating spring, celebrating nature now more than ever before, and also honoring our essential workers, or the school age children of our essential workers. But I think the key here is to say we actually are really related to COVID-19, and we really appreciate the fact that you are giving to these direct services and hospitals and food banks. And also, this is a critical part of our collective healing and recovery from this time, is to have some spaces that are still open and accessible to all people.
Great, those are some great ideas, Jessica. Kristen says, what is your advice for engaging corporate partners with a nonprofit that has never had corporate support before?
Yes, great question. So, and this webinar pre-COVID, we talk a lot about that. So you develop a pipeline of corporate prospects, and it starts and ends with your board. And I know that sometimes is not very fun to hear, because sometimes board members, sometimes they understand that their number one responsibility is to be your fundraiser, to be your ambassador. Sometimes they don't understand that. So hopefully, Kristen, all the folks on your board understand that it is their job to not only give and give generously, but to connect you with companies and individuals that they feel are, good prospects for you. The key there is to create an opportunity that your board members feel excited to pitch to their company or to their partner's company, or whatever, their clients, or whoever it is. So I would suggest, if you have never worked with a corporation before, number one, sit down with your program team and figure out what activities can we do that are mission driven, related, relevant, and don't take a ton of resources on our end. What online virtual tour or series or webinar panel or whatever can we offer that feels right and true to us? And let's package that. Let's put a name, let's call it something, let's package it, let's put a date on it, and then let's go out there and shop it around to new companies who are, again, looking for good content, looking for creative ways to get their employees engaged, and maybe looking for some, if they don't already have a nonprofit partner in this time, really looking to establish that. But again, your board should be the people that you go to for your new prospect development. And we should be tracking in our database, if you have one, or even in a spreadsheet, who their lists are, and they should be really working those lists. Now, again, if they're not there yet, that's a different webinar, unfortunately. But if they're not there yet and you're struggling with board member buy-in and support, also know that you are not alone in that either.
Great, thank you. Nicole says, any advice for orgs looking for new corporate sponsors? My arts organization was planning to really try to build out corporate support in 2020, but it seems like a very tough time to try to build new relationships.
Yeah, I hear that. And again, I think it goes back to the creative opportunity. Yeah, I'm seeing that there's a similar struggle for that arts organization. I think, that there is, I actually saw an article that I'll try to find, and maybe I'll send to you, Kimberly, about how we have to make the pitch that arts are essential for our mental health and our sanity and our hope right now. So I think there's that, the messaging and communications piece of that is that, like, yes, food and nourishment, but yeah, a virtual gallery tour for employees is one of the ideas that Virginia shared. People are bored at home. They want something interesting to do, and have an artist talk about their work. Do, again, maybe a partnership where you're bringing something to school-age children or to the elderly, or, folks who can't get any sort of stimulus, a homeless shelter, something like that, where you're packaging something that is then going to be more accessible to more individuals. And maybe the company would sponsor that to have their logo, again, on that tour, or on that talk with that artist, or on that packaged maybe the curator talks about an exhibit, and that's again packaged. So it is a challenge right now, and I think it honestly goes back a little bit to our trauma, that right now the idea of new things to us, like our brains literally can't do so much. It's all so new, and we're working overtime even if we don't kind of realize it. We are, and so new things can feel like impossible. But I think if you find the right new thing, it can also feel really hopeful and really like, oh wow, I want to like talk about something like this because this is fun and exciting. So I hear you, the struggle is real to capture people's attention in this saturated, crazy time. And yet I think that if you think about really creative ideas, and package it well, that you can use this as a hook to get new people and new companies involved. But Virginia has a number of great ideas here, so check those out.
Great. Well, we don't have any other questions pending, but we have about a minute left. So Jessica, what is the best way if people wanted to reach out to you to contact you?
So
your information on the screen.
My email is here, jessica@jessicajamesconsulting.com. So jessica@jessicajamesconsulting.com. My website is just jessicajamesconsulting.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. Please do connect with me. Let me know how you're doing. And yeah, I mean, I just want to leave you with the reminder that the work continues. It matters more now than ever before. And as Glennon Doyle, I don't know if anyone follows her, but she's an incredible author and thought leader. She says we can do hard things. We can do this together and for our clients and for our organization. So I really send my love and my hope to all of you. And I'm here if you want to talk, brainstorm, connect. So you're not alone.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you,
I
guys.
love your positivity. So thank you all for joining JMT Consulting for this webinar today. Thank you, Jessica, for your time, and we hope you all enjoyed the presentation. We'd love for you all to join us at future events and webinars, which you can find by visiting our website, jmtconsulting.com, and then clicking on the Training and Events tab. So this will conclude our webinar. Thank you all again, and I hope you all have a great day.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.